Welcome to the McNees Eminent Domain podcast series. In this video podcast, attorney Kandice Hull details eminent domain and explains how it is used. Ms. Hull leads the eminent domain practice group at McNees and is chair of the litigation practice group.
The use of eminent domain has gained national attention recently, but many are unsure of exactly what the term means and how the power is used. Eminent domain is the power of the state or federal government to take ownership of private property for public use. The government has the ability to acquire the property in the absence of the landowner's consent to the acquisition when certain conditions are met. The law of eminent domain is an attempt to solve a fundamental conflict between the rights of the individual and the needs of the public. Sometimes the government needs to acquire land for a purpose that will benefit the common good. Sometimes the owner of the property needed by the government is unwilling to sell the land. Eminent domain jurisprudence recognizes that a single individual should not have the power to stop necessary public works. On the other hand, condemnation law also recognizes that the individual whose interests are yielding to the greater good should be made whole. From these basic ideas comes the fundamental principles of eminent domain. First, the condemnation must be for a public purpose. And second, the owner of the land taken must be justly compensated for his loss. Although eminent domain is often viewed as an example of government overreaching, the power of condemnation actually has a long history of use in democratic forms of government. The origins of eminent domain date back to the Magna Carta, the charter between King John and the barons of England, which placed certain restrictions on the king's power. The Magna Carta provided that where the crown seized personal property of a baron, it was required to pay the owner of that property. And that is the beginning of modern condemnation law. Both the United States and Pennsylvania constitutions contain articles specifically allowing the government to use eminent domain. Both documents contain the two fundamental concepts that we've talked about. The use of eminent domain must be to further a public purpose, and the landowner must be justly compensated for the taking. It is perhaps not surprising, then, that litigation in the eminent domain context is often divided into two distinct sections. The first portion of the litigation typically concerns the condemnor's right to acquire the property. Often the question in this portion of the proceeding is whether the taking of the property is indeed for a fundamental public purpose. The condemnor often has the advantage in this stage of the proceeding, as the law, particularly federal law, is expansive in what constitutes a public purpose. The second portion of the eminent domain proceeding concerns the amount of compensation owed to the landowner. In this portion of the litigation, the landowner typically has more protections, as the law wants to make certain that he receives the fair value of what was taken. At McNees Wallace Nurick, we represent both condemnors and condemnees in eminent domain proceedings, and we do so in both sections of eminent domain litigation. It can be a complicated process, but knowing the fundamental principles behind it makes it easier to understand the law and the process. For more on this topic, see the information on the following screen.